Bunch of top of my hands. Okay. All right. So we should have our outlines turned in or done by today. I think everybody kind of still has some work to do on those, but you can continue to make your outline as you write your note cards. So we need to go ahead and start getting notes. So the note card lesson from your grammar book starts on page 281. Now it's talking about read and take notes. You can print off your bibliography sources. You can use a highlighter. You don't want to like take notes necessarily, but like highlight some key points that you find interesting. They say to use 4x6 cards and write with ink and write on only one side of each card. I am more than happy if you want to, again, do them like I suggested, where you have a page set up and your bibliography is at the top. And we'll talk about APA form once we get closer to those. And then underneath it, you have all the sources from or notes from that specific source. 3 notes. So, right, you've got your notes underneath. Now, what I want to talk about is the actual information and form of the notes. First off, you need to make sure that you kind of give yourself some sort of idea of where you got that source from. Like, obviously, you know from your bibliography what source it came from. But if it's like a 14-page article, then put a note there at the end, like page number or paragraph 10. Like, give yourself some idea of where that information came from. So that if you do need to go back and look at the context of it, or if you wanted to actually, like maybe you wrote it in paraphrase, but then you decide you want to use a quote. So you need to go back and find it so you can write a word for word quote instead of paraphrasing. In quotation, yes, we'll do those. All right, you don't, again, it's the top of the card. You don't have to write a heading or use a separate card for each note, although I would definitely use a separate page for each source. So don't try to put 2 different sources in their notes on the same page if you're doing it in Word. Okay, so look at, I'm going to read this directly. At the bottom of page 281, point G, it says, while you are reading and take notes, be on guard mentally. Know your sources. Some writers are liberal and some are conservative. Some publishers are liberal and some are conservative. Many writers whose sources you will use are not Christians. Some writers are Christians who have their highest confidence in the Word of God. Other writers are Christians who believe the Bible, but they put a lot more confidence on the thoughts of scholarly men. So sort of look at the context of what it is you're reading and make sure that your source is reputable. And I know we talked about plagiarism in computer applications, but we'll talk about it a little bit more when we start actually writing. So then H is talking about the actual form of your notes. So this is on page 282 in your grammar handbook. H says your notes may be summaries, paraphrases, direct quotations, or a combination of the 3. If you're just kind of wanting to get the key information, but you don't want to sort of process it and think about how you're going to rewrite it, just write it as direct quotes from your source. Because then you can go back and when your brain is more focused on that particular topic, you can sort of write it back in your own words or summarize it somehow instead of don't use a direct quote for every single thing that you get. Some of it you're just going to have to paraphrase. When taking notes for any paper that include information from the works of others, you have to be careful to avoid plagiarism. So again, we'll talk about this more when I've got everybody in class. But plagiarism is a form of stealing, which consists of taking the opinion, the organization, the words, or the sentence structure of someone else, and then acting as if it was your own. So they do have a sample note card at the bottom of page 282. So in this case, like if this was about the topic that the examples are from, then my note may say, Sir Walter Scott stated that Jane Austen's gifts lay in her ability to describe Wow. Okay, her ability to describe ordinary people in everyday situations. So this one is a summary of a quote. So he's not saying Sir Walter Scott stated, quotation, Jane Austen's gift lay in her ability to describe ordinary people in everyday situations. Instead, she's sort of rephrasing a little bit what he said, because he's not going to say it quite this way. It's a much older form of speaking, so his words are going to be a little more organized in a different way. But she's just making it in more modern phrasing, and also recognizing that Sir Walter Scott said it. So whenever you state or paraphrase something by someone, you must make sure you've got your quotations after it. But we'll get to that later too. Okay, so on page 283, if most of your note-taking consists of writing summaries and paraphrases, rather than copying down direct quotations, your paper is going to be a lot easier to write, and it's going to be a better paper. Now, sometimes you need direct quotations, but you want most of your sources to be very similar to what you did in the character analysis, where you sort of described or summarized what was happening, and then you just put your in-text citation of where in the book that came from. But you did it in your own words. Very rarely did you use full quotations. And that way you create more flow in the way that your paper is written, because you're writing it in your style, not sort of randomly putting in quotations from other people. As we talked about earlier, obviously, if you do have direct quotations, make sure you use quotation marks. We'll go over that a little bit more. If you make personal comments on a note card, put them in brackets. Let's see. So, okay, so point in is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So as you're looking for notes, this is where you may add or take away from your outline. In most of y'all's cases, you're probably going to be adding. But as you take notes and become more familiar with your subject, you will add some points to your outline and then drop some others. If while taking notes, you realize that your thesis statement is inaccurate or does not really indicate the truth about your subject, you can change your thesis statement. Although I think most of y'all's looks pretty good. And that's pretty much it. So for right now, so next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, you need to have 30 notes. And these notes need to run a pretty good gambit of what's covered in your outline. So you can do it multiple ways. Say what? Once you get started, yeah, it should.
It's not like you have to put a bunch of stuff on one note card. I mean, you can write like 7 words, right, and then go to another note.
Right. So there's a couple of different ways to approach this. The first thing you can do is start with one source, and then everything you feel like applies to what you want to applies to your thesis. You pull it out of that source, you finish it, and then you're done with that bibliography and you move on to your next one. Another way you can approach this is, say, Thomas is wanting to write his about George Washington's military career. So he's going to go through all of his sources and pull out every note about George Washington in the military, and then organize it based on the source that it came from. Then when he wants to talk about the presidency, then he'll go back through his sources and pull out anything related to the presidency. So you see how that focuses more on the topic, whereas the first method focuses more on the sources themselves. So you can do whichever one you feel like works better with your brain. Like, to me, I would think that the bibliography, going by bibliography, is a little more efficient, because you're not reading the same stuff over and over, going back and forth between your sources. That kind of chaos can really mess with my brain and my train of thought. However, there are a lot of people who, if you're constantly switching topics, it does the same thing. So it might actually be better for you to just go through really quick and skim and say, oh, this tells me something about his time in the French and Indian War. This tells me something about what he did in the American Revolution. You know, like, you pull out everything related to his military career, and then that topic is done. You can skip everything else about it and just look at presidency. So I'm just sharing some like best practices, I guess, or some methodologies to learning how to get the information you need from your sources. But the point of that is really that you need to make sure that you have those by next Thursday. Let me find that timeline here. Oh, let's see. English 11. Research paper. Timeline. All right, so at this point, I did give y'all, like we have the bibliography. I got that last week. Preliminary outline that was due, and the final thesis that was due yesterday, but I gave you guys till today. And then first 30 note cards. Oh yeah, next Tuesday. Sorry, not next Thursday. But again, 30 note cards, not horrible. All right.
Ms. Spencer's making me do like 75 note cards.
I know. And y'all very well may end up with that many.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where if you feel like you are going to rely strongly on your note cards to write your paper, have more note cards. If you feel like you can take your note and run with it and make like a full paragraph out of maybe 1 or 2 notes, then you probably don't need as many. But that at least kind of get you started, is having those note cards written. All right, that's it as far as the research paper. We need to start reviewing for our grammar test. Oh, by the end of the day, I'm always coughing. So put that aside. Let's get through this, and then you might have a little bit of time to finish anything else that you're working on. So open your workbooks to page 26, sorry. 26. We need to review phrases, review clauses. And then tomorrow and Friday, we will work on, I've got a review guide coming up. Let's see, let me just make a new one. So that's not what I meant to do. Here we go. All right, so on page 26, we have exercise 56, reviewing phrases. In the first blank, you have to identify the italicized phrases as prepositional, participial, gerund, or infinitive, apositive, or nominative absolute. And then in the second blank, you need to write noun, adjective, or adverb. Probably the one that's the newest is the nominative absolute, but we'll at least do a few of these and then we'll finish them up tomorrow. Okay, so the first one is after washing the car, I'm struggling so hard. Oh yeah, it's pitiful. I just can't talk and type at the same time. Okay, so after washing the car, we polished it with a new kind of paste wax. That's weird. All right, so what kind of phrase are we looking at here? It's a gerund, which is always a noun. Well, that's all right, that's good. Why? There we go. All right, this is a gerund phrase and it's being used as a noun, which gerunds always are. What kind of noun is it? Subject, direct object, indirect object, predicate, nominative, object of a preposition, apositive. So what other noun is it like describing if it's an apositive? So washing the car just renames a person? Or does it tell you what the person is doing? Right. Right, definitely not the subject. We polished it with a new kind of paste wax. That's your main sentence. So it's outside of the main sentence. But it's a noun. The A positive will always follow the noun that it's describing. Right, yep.
Infinitives are,
Why? Goodness gracious.
adjectives.
No, participles are always adjectives.
Infinitives always have the word to, right?
Yes. All right, so what is after? What is the word after? It's a preposition. It's a prep-
washing the car. What?
Is the object of the preposition after. Oh, no, you're just not paying attention. It's been a long day. All right, so what about this one? The teacher near the lectern will be addressing the committee today. Okay, here's the thing. Is there a verb there? Near the lectern? It's a type of phrase.
Well,
So,
teacher is your subject, will be addressing is your verb.
right.
So that would be.
So again, we have prepositional, participial, gerund, infinitive, a positive, or absolute. What'd you say? What's the verb? If it's a participial, what's the verb? Huh? No, but near the lectern is your phrase. You're looking at the phrase, Nope.
No, will be addressing the verb.
In the phrase, Shed.
Is there a verb?
No.
No. So what kind, so it can't be a verbal, can't be a participle, a gerund, or an infinitive, because you have no verb form. So it could be a preposition, an a positive, or a nominative absolute. It's been a minute. This is a review from a previous test. Oh, guys. All right. Near the lectern is a preposition. Near is a preposition. Remember, prepositions cover movement, time, or placement. Space. Near tells you its location or its space. So this is a prepositional phrase acting as what? Adverb? Close. But who is near the lectern? Right. It's describing a who. So it's answering which teacher, the one near the lectern. If it were answering where the action was happening, then it would be an adverb. But in the way that it's written, it's describing the teacher. So it's an adjective. What was that? Gasp for. Someone might either. All right. Oh, yeah. Please don't. What about this number 3? It's a what? It's an A positive. Yep. And A positives are always what? Yep. Every time. So an A positive is always a noun. Just like a gerund is always a noun. Yep. Carl, you scared me. I thought it was already pickup time.
No, sorry.
Gotcha. Okay. I know. Ready to relax, if only. Oh, I never get to relax. Let's see here. Okay, my homework being finished, I am now ready to relax. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, this is a nominative absolute. ABS. And nominative absolutes are just, okay, hold on, let me find them. because I know everybody's like, I don't even remember what that was. Yeah,
I remember you saying.
it's been, this was at like the beginning of the year. So we'll go over a couple of those. So the nominative, absolute. Let me think here.
You don't pick up today?
Always.
No, the first one was Darren.
Gerunds are always nouns.
I know, but first question.
Huh?
What type of Darren?
Oh, it's object of preposition. Nom. Nominative. Trying to find it. Oh, it's not in here. That's great. Maybe it's under A. A, B. Nope, I'll have to find it. We'll talk about it another time. We're just talking about nouns. But there, this part is blank when you have a nominative absolute. It's just extra. The nominative absolute has no grammatical place in the sentence except that it just gives context. So it's giving you like a condition for being ready to relax. All right. So number 5, our history class has a paper to complete by next Monday. All right. Thomas, stop talking. I'm trying to help you. Do not run your mouth in the middle of my class. Y'all do this constantly. Stop. Our history class has a paper to complete by next Monday. So what is this phrase? It's an infinitive. It has a to. Nope. And it has a verb after. So it's a verb, a verbal. So let's see. Yep. It's an adjective describing like which paper, the paper to complete by next Monday. Infinitives can be nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. Only participles can be or adjectives. So good guess. Okay.
Is the next one a preposition?
Yep.
That one's been filled.
So how's it being used in a sentence? What's it answering?
What? Where?
Right. So yes, Thomas is right. It's an adverb. The Gulf Stream can be traced along the shoes because it's telling you where it can be traced. The next one's what?
Oh, to go.
It would be preposition, except it's got a verb right after it. So it's not. So number 7, okay, so it's answering why he was afraid. Yep. Maybe you wouldn't be if you pay attention. Oh, you meant this is, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, yellow. Chad can whisper with his nose. Impressive.
It is, yeah. Okay, what about the next one? We found an old farmhouse. I'm just shortening this because it's taking me forever. Hidden among the brush and shrubs. All right. What is it? What's your preposition? What's hidden?
Brush and shrubs.
No. No, what is hidden so it's describing a farmhouse. And a farmhouse is a noun. So that anything that describes a noun is a adjective. The other A word, there's only like 600. Does it end in ing? So hidden is a verb. But it's not being used as a verb because found is our verb. So what do we call a verbal that acts as an adjective? So participial phrases are always adjectives. They end in ing, ed, en, t. Different forms, but they always act as an adjective. Yep, it's nominative absolute. All right, that's it. Let me stop this thing. Stop. All right, y'all have 10 minutes. If there is anything else that you need to turn in.